day, what are we on? Day 4. I got all my takeoff parts so far photographed, put together, categorized, up for sale. Dirt cheap. Again, if anybody, especially local, sees anything you want, let me know. Just put the battery on a charger here, and it was definitely low, not real bad, but we'll see how it tops up. And I'm gonna go to Walmart, see if they have another pigtail. I got a little battery tender, and that's what I use just around the garage. I always put pigtails on my vehicles and my bikes, so I'm sure I'm gonna have one on this, and it'll probably just snake out of underneath the new seat somewhere. It's always handy. I hate having to take a bike apart to get to the battery just to stick a tender on it. It's always good to have, especially if you don't ride the thing a lot regularly. Bikes these days have computers and they will run down the batteries. If you have an alarm, anything with an LED on it, you know, it's going to run it down. So make sure you're using a battery tender. It will extend the life of your battery greatly. If you deplete your battery a few times, it can absolutely kill it. There's no guarantee a regular start motorcycle battery will come back from a dead charge. So now I'm going to start working my way forward. I'm going to take off these side cases, side covers, see what's in the stock tool little pouch thing. I got to take off my rear pegs. I think these plastic might stay, might go. I got a little scratch on it there. I don't know if I stick with these, I might get another one. Maybe touch it up. Depends on how deep that is. Depends on if they'll stay or not. They might go, so I'm not really worried about that right now. I'm going to take off a lot of this stuff along the bottom. I got to take off the kickstand. That whole thing needs lube. It's in good shape. The switch works fine, but the spring does not return right. It's all gunked up. And I do want to get in and take a look at the swing arm, the pivot joint, take a look at the shock. Another contributing factor to how squirrely this was coming home, just check the pressure here. Not even 20 psi. So my thought that it was a flat tire, not far off the mark. That's exactly what it was, but it still has a really crappy tread. Look at the difference between the tread areas, the depth. You can see it, like look between here and here. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's real obvious to the eye how big of a difference there is. This section, all these triangles, much lower between these two right here. Very squirrely. Got to take these crash bars off, sell those. Front bumper, sell those. Take the lights off the front, sell those. Take the handlebars off, sell those. Grips are going to come off. If I can salvage the grips, you know what? Looking at this right now, I can see that this took a hit when it fell over in the garage or whatever it did, and it's bent up. So grips probably just getting thrown out. Clutch lever, that's bent, that gets thrown out. But I can sell the bar, that's in good shape. Mirrors, sell those. Hello. Then I can take the wheels off. I got new tires on the way. I went with, how do you say it, Metzeler 880s, and I'm doing the wide white walls, stock size tires. Now these are tube tires, and that's my first experience with them. Turns out there's really nothing special about them. They use the same type of tire, but there are tubes just like a bicycle inside because they're spokes, and you know, you don't have an airtight seal through the rim, so you can't just stick on a normal tire with a bead because it won't hold air. So there's tubes in there. They're, as far as I know, holding air just fine. They're not flat, so the tubes are good, but definitely putting new tread on it. And those were not bad shipped. It was just over 300 bucks for the pair of white walls. So those I think are going to give it, I don't know if I'd put white walls on a stock one, but on the project I'm doing, I think it's going to look badass. Then I got to take those forks off, definitely change the oil in those, and do some cleanup. We've got some, yeah, just some marks. No dents, no dings, so nothing important. And take off the tank, take off the gauge cluster, change that bezel, you know, sell this for peanuts. I'm sure somebody can use it and doesn't care about this little tiny ding here, since these things are like 70 bucks used. And I've seen them in a lot worse condition than this, going for more than 70 bucks. I mean, all scratched up and stuff. So, you know, I'm going to be staring at this every freaking minute I'm on the bike. Just knowing it's there. You know, it's not a big deal. But it was worth 30 bucks to me to change. Wasn't quite worth 70 bucks. I have my Magic Line. Everybody does. And that'll kind of go into my question at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. I will check the rear brakes, but the indicator and the wear life shows are right in the middle. Front brakes are also right in the middle. Plenty of meat left on those, so I don't have to do anything. And they feel fine, feel great. I do need to completely flush the brake system, and I'll do that once it's torn down. And certainly before I start doing any of the new work, because that brake fluid is very caustic to paint. So I don't want it on anything new. Front radiator guard, I have the choice of leaving this stock plastic or going to chrome. I think I'm going to leave it stock because I've got enough chrome, I think. I'm not really, you might think I'm a chrome nut, but I'm really not. I'm not adding any chrome. The new mirrors and the drag bar are actually going to be black. Painting all the new fender work. The new lights are chrome, but they're tiny. I mean, they're half the size of these little grip things. It's pegs. So it's going to be mostly black and red with chrome engine and exhaust components and the headlight. And that's pretty much it. Just a good dose of chrome. I'm not interested in a big old chromed out bike though. Okay, let's get to work. And there we go. Not 30 seconds after I stopped the video, the battery topped off. So she is good to go. It's just bouncing off a surface charge there. I'm sure it's been a long time since it had anything but a charge by the bike. Moving on. I'll tell you, the only bad part about doing this with you guys watching is I can't put on my music. This, so far, oh my god, really, really fun project. Let me tell you what. But I usually like having music out here while I'm doing stuff. So I went out last night because, man, taking off those big bolts, that was super annoying, having to use my breaker bar and, you know, doing a quarter turn at a time. Took forever. So I went out and I got this new ratcheting, pivoting, extending ratchet. I also got a pair of snips, because stupid me left my old ones out in the rain when I was doing my roof project, and, well, they rested shut. This ratchet is 20 bucks, Stanley. Should be pretty cool. Come on, open. There we go. Because it extends. So you pull this little guy down here, and you get all these different lengths. So I can really get on those stubborn bolts when I need the space. Get it back down here. Boy, I hope this head isn't quite as floppy as I think. That would be kind of annoying. Yeah, okay, it locks. So it's got this pin here in this position. You can move it so you can get it at a different angle. And then you just flick it over there to lock it. Figured it had to lock. There's no way they would leave it floppy. That's what she said. Alright, cool. You got your normal adjustment there and your pin release. But this is really cool. That's nice. Good solid locking handle. You know, not a super expensive tool. 20 bucks. Should last me a heck of a lot longer than the other ratchets I have, which are all from, you know, basically the kits to get the socket sets. So that should help. Cool. Now, moving on to the bike. I'm just going to start working my way forward. Something else I thought of that will solve my key problem. As I mentioned before, I got one for the ignition and then one that was used for everything else. Well, two of the other everything else's are gone. I'm not using the helmet lock, and this side cover is going away, and that's got the lock on it here. Not using it. So that just leaves me with the gas cap. I can probably take this gas cap in and get it rekeyed to my current ignition key. I have no idea what a locksmith would charge for that. Probably not a whole lot, but that'll take care of that problem. Then I can just ditch that key that came with the bike and just use the ignition key for both those two, and man, I'm set. So there we go. I guess I'll start on the handlebars since that's kind of the big thing in the way here. First thing I got to take off is the mirrors. Need a wrench, looks like maybe a 14. Got my tool room piling up with old parts. Nope, maybe a 16. Got all the parts on or not eBay, on Craigslist and a local Facebook group. Alright, I'm just going to get a wrench. So I just want to move them. I don't care if somebody offers me half asking price, which is already super, super low. Be sold, come get it. Just want it all gone. Pop that loose. Even though these parts aren't in tip-top shape, I mean, they're functional. So if somebody crashed a bike or they just have a really crappy project bike, this will be a real economical way for somebody to put a bike back together. As long as you don't care about a couple little surface scratches on the outside of the mirrors here, these will be just fine. I want to get everything off the top here because I want to get the tank off. I've got a whole bunch of new parts I'm going to order, including the fenders. And as soon as the fenders come in, I can prep the tank, take the badges off, and send all three of those out for painting. Alright, now I want to take these grips off. I got to take these weights off first. Looks like a pretty big screwdriver's needed. These are one of the few parts I'm going to be throwing away. Oh man, I'm going to try a big slot because this is just starting to bite into it. I absolutely hate Phillips screws used on things like this. That's a little too big. Come on. Because it's one of the easiest fasteners to strip out. You get very little relative contact on the part compared to, say, an Allen bolt. Wow, that is really on there. If I can get this whole thing going. I would imagine it's got a little bit of corrosion too. I can't tell if it's loosening up yet. It's spinning, but it feels like this whole screw, I'm going to give it a tap. Feels like a whole screw is maybe a little bit bonded. I can also use a little bit of heat. Sometimes if there's Loctite, you have to use heat. If there's red, it's an absolute necessity. Those big bolts I had trouble with only had blue on it, but they were caked on there. You put one drop of thread locker on when you're putting in a fastener. That had like 5 or 6 drops. It was completely covered. And it turns into basically like a hot glue. Stronger. So this guy's in here. And it's a really soft freaking metal screw. And I've got really good contact with this screwdriver and it's still starting to turn it. Oh, come on now. Well, it is possible that I have to cut these off. Which again, isn't a big deal. It's all getting replaced. But, pain in the butt. This is just solid. Let me try the other side while I'm here. It also may be screwed up because it was dropped and it is bent. So that screw may be in and bent in the middle, in which case it's never coming out because it would try to wobble as you take it out. And it can't do that. So if this one comes off easily, that's what it is, and I will have to cut it off. You know, I wonder if they're reverse thread also. The ones on my FGR weren't, they were normal, so I doubt it. It's not like they have to be for the throttle or anything. And this guy's really in there too. I can't even begin to turn it. Alright, well, I think I'm just going to have to cut it. So I'm going to have some fun with that. Okay, that's that. Put a little towel here just to capture any shavings. Still have some on the ground. If you ever do that, make sure that nothing below whatever you're cutting is going to be affected by them. So in here we just have a rubber dampener. This is a sheath. And that is just full of rust. It wants to push in, but it won't pull back out. So that was not coming off, to say the least. I need a garbage out here, I just realized. So I'll do the same thing to the other side. There's that. Now we've got, I guess I'll take this cable off first. Need to buy another boot. I forgot to order one of those. This one has a tear in it right here from probably right where it hit the ground. Pull that back. Oh, a bunch of cobwebs. And I need to fully inspect the cables once I get them off. Should be able to loosen them up all the way here and take it out of the handle. Just need to back it off to clear the threads from the handle itself. Now it's free. And I'm going to pull it, and as I come back, almost free. As I come back, pull the cable. Come on now. It's really stuck. Maybe I just can't get it from that angle. I'm right-handed. Give this a shot. There we go. Just get it out of the groove. Take a look at this end. Make sure there's no fraying at the ball. That looks great. There's a little bit of grease on the cable, so maybe somebody, gave it a little spurt in its life. That looks fine. So don't need to buy a cable. That's good. Saves me some money there. I do need this new boot though. Question is, how does this boot get on the cable? Maybe I'll save it. Because I don't feel like disassembling the whole cable end just to get a new boot on it. It looks like it probably comes with the cable because it's all molded around the sheath and it's very tight. So what I'll probably do is just put some goop on the inside here to make it watertight. Can't really see it, so that'll be fine. Alright, let's get this control off. Looks like one Allen bolt and one nut. Let's do the Allen first. Pretty small one. A little bigger than that one. There we go. Leverage again with a wrench. That sucker's tight. You know what? This is a good chance to use my new ratchet. Let's see if this is the right size. It is. Nice. That's a good feel. Nice and smooth. All right. I do need to save this bolt because it's going back on the new bars. So that's loose. I don't have to take off this nut assembly. Actually I do, because I'm going to change the lever, but I'll do that off the bike. So I need to take off this control. Phillips again, hate Phillips. I really need to make sure the bit fits well. That's the key to using Phillips screws, is making sure your bit is the right one. This one's a little too long, so I'm going to get a fatter, shorter one. These little hand driver sets are very inexpensive, very good for any kind of small fastener like this. Even small stuff around the house, the sockets work really well. Nothing really tough. But here you can see they come with selections of different slotted and Phillips bits and some Torx. Make sure, like I said, if you're doing work with Phillips screws, that you get a bit that fits as tight as possible. And that one is a lot better. So we'll go ahead and use him. And it'll come with one socket that's an adapter and usually has a little spring inside. This one has one built in and a magnet, so that fits right in even better. So let's get this control off. There we go. See, that one fit it and it came out. This one didn't have monster Loctite on it. And again, I need to save these screws because this control is going on the new bars. And I'm just going to loosen them a little bit here so I don't lose them. And I should be able to, if there's enough cable, just slide this off, unless there's a locating pin, which there is. So take it off. The locating pin will make sure that the control doesn't spin around, so it's always in the right spot. And if that's the case, you can't slide it off, you just have to split the two clamshells. No big deal. Just make sure that you don't lose the screws and you watch out for any kind of wiring. So that's just going to drop down. So now I've got an electrical connector here on the back that tells the computer that the clutch is released. And that pulls right out. This slides off. Now I'll go do the other side the same way. Well, just as I finished that clip, the mailman came, and we should have some more bike parts here. I can't remember what I ordered, but let's open them and find out after I'm done with this. Wrapping up the other side here, I just cut the grip off, cut off the end weight, same as the other side. I removed this add-on spring-loaded crappy cruise control that somebody added. It was a bunch of rusted junk. I had to go get my American wrenches because, you know, it's an American part and they don't do metric usually. So now I got to take off the controls and the brake housing and master cylinder. As soon as I find right here my driver, go back to that big Phillips. Should be about the same. Now you won't be able to take this throttle grip off until you split this, because you got your two throttle cables coming in and they are mating to your actual throttle grip. So once we get this loosened, we can loosen those, throw out this. That's going to be replaced by new grips. I haven't decided on the exact grips I want to go with. I think I might go with some chunkier cushioned ones, either gel or air cushioned. They're not that expensive, 50, 60 bucks for pretty much whatever you want. Probably go with just black and chrome. Wow, this bottom one is totally loose. That's probably because I loosened the top one already. Well, we'll figure it out. I wouldn't mind a little bit of extra girth, that's what she said, on the grip. Because I have ridden some cruisers lately, and I appreciated the ones that had the really nice chunky grips. Just felt better on a cruiser. If you're not really concerned about riding hard, you know, on this one I've got normal size grips and I really appreciate that they're that way and I get very direct feedback. But this one, you know, it's just about relaxing. Alright, got this split. Got the throttle cables wrapped around the cam. And probably have a locating pin. Wiggle this loose off the back a little bit. Okay, now what I need to do is loosen these adjusters all the way to get some slack on the cable, and then we'll take those out the same way I did the clutch cable. This brake cylinder assembly, the master cylinder, has an electrical connector down here, and same type of screw connection, and that'll slide off, so I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, before I go ahead and take the brake master cylinder off the other side, this would be a good point to stop, flush the system, and show you guys how to do that. Now on this particular bike, it literally doesn't get any simpler. This is as basic a braking system as you're going to find on any production, any bike probably in the last 40 years plus. This has mechanical drum brakes in the back. It's simply a lever. There's no hydraulics. You have a single piston front caliper. So you literally have the lever, the lines, the fluid, the reservoir, and one bleed valve. That's it to the entire brake system. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how I do it. I use a Mighty Vac. You can use speed bleeders. On this, you actually don't need any tools. You can reach everything here by yourself. You don't even need a helper. You could just be adjusting the bleed valve with a wrench with one hand, pumping this with the other, and topping off the reservoir. All right, not a big deal. I do this just because it's faster. I can just set this down, generate some vacuum, let it start sucking, just keep topping it off. This flush is going to take 5 minutes. I just need to verify what type of fluid it wants and see if I have any. I doubt I'm going to have a fresh bottle, no matter what it needs. This says .4. Always make sure that you check what number correlates to your vehicle, whether it's .3, 4, or 5. Can't say I've ever used a 5. I think 5's out there now. Okay, so this is .4. Let me see if I have any. And no, I don't, so I'm going to run up to the auto store real quick, grab a small bottle of that. Doesn't need much, but man, this fluid needs to be changed. It's like amber yellow. It's really, really nasty. Now I'm going to do it now rather than when the bike's all assembled, because you want to be really careful with brake fluid. I'm still going to put down towels galore. You want absolutely zero brake fluid to touch any kind of finished surface, because it will eat it in a matter of seconds, especially soft paints. It'll eat right through it. It'll leave a nice cloudy white mark, and it's done. We got to repaint it. So I'm not going to risk it on the new tank and all that. I'm just going to do it now. It's going to stay sealed, so it doesn't matter that it's moving around and anything like that. That's just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I guess I might as well open up these packages now, and then we'll wrap up today's video. Let's see what we got here. By the way, I swept the floor just so any metal shavings are gone. Don't feel like stepping on those or anything. So let's see what came in. Got one from Amazon, and I really can't remember what I bought. I've got so many parts coming in right now, and I still have to order a lot of the bobber specific stuff. What the heck? I think this might be... Oh, too awesome! I know who this is from. I helped a friend out with her computer problems. She knows I'm a hot sauce lover. Yeah. Thank you, Kim. Zombie Cajun hot sauce. Zombie Cajun hot sauce is not just a novelty gift. We guarantee you'll find this your new favorite hot sauce in this gift box, or we'll give you your money back. I have tons and tons of different hot sauces. I like it on food. I cook with them. I do a lot of cooking stuff. If you want to see some of my cooking stuff, go to cigarobsession.com and look up Guy Stuff. I've got like 30, 40 different recipes on there. A lot of them involving hot sauces. So what do we got in here? We've got, oh man, I don't even know how to say this. Lagniappe hot pepper sauce, garlic, straight hot, and an extra strength conversion hot sauce. Very cool. Thanks again, Kim. Almost as good as bike parts, but I will definitely enjoy these. And that re-ups my supply. I've got enough hot sauce for several years now. Because man, the really true hot sauce, you only use it a couple drops at a time. I've got one that's my favorite for cooking called Dave's Insanity. Literally 1 drop per huge pot of soup or chili or whatever I'm cooking. More than enough just to add solid heat. There's no flavor in it. It is just freaking heat. 1 drop. It's a food additive. Do not put it on food and eat it. Trust me. Been there, done that. I drooled and cried for 20 minutes over a garbage bin. This one is from Boats US. And Partzilla and Boaters World, all the same place. I ordered it from Partzilla. And I remember the order, but I don't remember what the part was, so this will be a surprise. It's like Christmas. Inside box number 2, we have an OEM, oh, that's right, filters. Suzuki parts. We have a Suzuki air filter, because this one, it's a stock paper filter, which I'm completely fine with. I'm not really keen on putting the K&Ns or anything on here because I don't want to mess with the computer. And frankly, I know from lots of prior experience with doing that kind of stuff, the gains are in your head. I don't care if the dyno shows a 1 or 2 horsepower gain. You don't notice anything like that on the street. Nothing. If I added a supercharger, I'd notice something. If I did a big bore kit, I'd notice something. If I put on high compression heads, I'd notice something. Putting on an air filter that flows a couple percentages more at peak, you're not going to notice it. Sorry to say. So I don't spend the money on crap like that. And then I have a K&N air filter. I only got this one because, number one, it's black. It was cheaper than the Suzuki. And it gives you this nub on the end. Just makes it easier to put a normal socket on to take off. Sometimes the bikes have pretty tight quarters to get you could get a cap wrench on it. I don't happen to have one for this size. Sometimes it can be a little hard to get the actual filter wrenches on. So that'll be good for the oil change at some point. I'm not sure when I will be doing that, before or after construction. Probably before. I think that's it for this. Yep. All right. So, good to have those in. Let's go ahead and wrap this up with the brake system flush on the 2006 Suzuki C50 Boulevard. Okay, got my brand new bottle of .4 brake fluid. Actually, a little hard to find. I had to go to 2 auto stores. Pretty much most cars out there use .3, and that's all I could find. But got one little bottle. It should be more than enough for this. If you're doing any kind of modern bike with a rear hydraulic brake or ABS system, you're going to need a big old bottle or 2. So bear that in mind. But this little simple one, this is going to be more than enough. Number 1 rule of doing brake work involving fluid: always use a brand new sealed bottle. Has to be sealed. Don't even use one that you used last week and you put the cap back on, it's up on the shelf. Okay, forget about that. When I went to look, I wasn't looking for a used one, I was looking for a new one. Also, don't use one that you've been storing for more than a year. It does eventually go bad. It has a time limit. You're supposed to change your fluid out on your bikes every 2 years. Check your book just to be sure, but that is a really good rule of thumb. It does break down over time, like I said. So there's no point in doing a flush just to have to do it a little bit later. Always get a brand new bottle. The reason it's important to use a brand new sealed bottle is because brake fluid absorbs the moisture in the air very quickly. And we're at like 80% humidity today, so if you're anywhere in Florida, you know what I'm talking about. It absorbs it really quickly. When the water gets into the brake fluid, the system does not perform well. Let me show you how you can kind of tell right away if you need to do your fluid. If you have your brake lever, for example, when you push it down, it should get real firm very quickly. It should be an increasing level of firmness to a rock hard state, and it should never go back and touch the grip. This one just about does, and it's like rubber. It's just squishy. All right. Now the other thing that can cause that is deteriorating brake lines. This one has such a short brake line, and it's not that old. I know that's not the case. You can sort of fix that by putting on braided steel lines instead, but honestly that is more for the racetrack, not for the street. So I know this is caused just by really, really old fluid. The other way you can tell, and it's more obvious as it is in this case, is looking through the sight glass. You should have clear fluid, and I can see this is very yellowed. Now the glass itself might be a little discolored, but I'll know for sure when I pop open this top. But I know from the feel of the lever, it never gets to a rock hard resistance, so that fluid is shot. That's what the water is doing inside the system. It doesn't work the way the brake fluid does. So let's go and do the flush. Here's the basics on what we're going to be doing. We have the system, which is the reservoir up here, the line going down, and the piston. There's fluid inside, and we want to move all this old fluid out and put the new fluid in. We're going to use a combination of vacuum and gravity. We're going to pop this top off. That's where the old fluid is sitting at the highest point. We're going to attach this Mighty Vac. Now again, you can use whatever system you want to use, and if you use one of these, it comes with all kinds of adapters. Depending on what kind of vehicle you're working on, you may have a different setup. This is simply the canister where the old fluid is going to be drawn into. You pump this up, it draws a vacuum, and just like a shop vac, it sucks it in here, dumps it out the bottom. Nothing will come out here. If this gets full, you stop and you dump it. You never get fluid into the pump itself. Down here, we have a rubber cap over the bleed screw. The hose on the other end simply attaches to it, and this is where you may need adapters to get a really good seal. I'm going to try it just with the hose, but I may need to get an adapter because there's not a whole lot of room. That's not a super tight fit. I'm going to pump it up here and see if I can draw a vacuum, see if it's holding, and it is, so that's good. I'll just need to make sure that that doesn't fall off or anything. The way you can do it manually is to simply put a wrench on this bleed screw, which is just, it's a one-way valve. If it's all the way in, nothing can flow through. If you start to loosen it, fluid will come out of it. It's a little nipple, just a one-way nipple. And you can put a tube on it and drain it into a canister on the floor and just use gravity and pump the handle to force the fluid through. That's perfectly fine to do, and frankly I wouldn't go buying a tool for this particular bike if I didn't already have this. But for doing more complicated vehicles, for doing a car, anything where you can't reach this with one hand and pump with the other, you need a tool, or speed bleeders, or like I said, your tool of choice. But this is great, works for anything. It's not just for brake jobs. You know, vacuum diagnosis tool is very handy for a lot of different jobs. So I have one, I'm going to use it. So we're going to stick this on here. I need to pop the top off of the reservoir. I'll get something to set that on. Set this little cap down. Don't lose that. And again, make sure you have a very well-fitting Phillips screw. Wow, these were not that tight. These absolutely have to be secure. If you lose seal on this canister, you lose your brakes. Because instead of pressurizing the brake, it'll just seep out this cover seal. So check those every now and again. Same thing with clutch reservoirs if you have a hydraulic clutch. Underneath we have a plastic seal. And again, do not let this drip anywhere. Which reminds me, I forgot to put down a towel, but I haven't gotten to the part where I'm pouring the fluid yet, which is typically where I do it. And then we have a rubber diaphragm gasket up here. Carefully set these aside. And now we have our disgustingly almost black fluid. Wow, that is really, really bad. Now I'm just going to drape this over the middle section here, just in case. Like I said, there's nothing I'm really worried about, but wow, alright, that is nasty. You'll see the difference when I get it started flowing. Now the important part when doing this is that this reservoir never goes dry. If it goes dry, it's going to start sucking in air into the line, and then you got to start all over because any air bubbles completely contaminate the system. So as this is draining, you're up here just keeping it topped off. Look at the level where it's at, and you should see on the sight glass or inside a fill line, there's a built-in fill line to the inside of this. Every bike is going to be slightly different. Make sure it's at a level. This is designed so when the levers are to the left, it's nice and straight, so that's how you want to fill it and drain it. You just want to make sure it's kept topped off. You can let it go down to the bottom of the reservoir, but don't let it get sucking in air, because then, like I said, you just did it for nothing. Oh, I'm out of room. Okay, now I'm going to unseal my brake fluid canister carefully without making a big mess. There we go. Now I'm going to connect the mighty vac. And forgot to get a wrench. Grab a wrench. I'm definitely going to have to hold that. Obviously not that much nipple to hold on to. Should be a 10 mil, I believe. There we go, that'll work. Can't remember what that's from, probably putting some IKEA together. Line on, make sure this isn't twisted so much. Make sure we're getting vacuum. Good enough for government work. This lever under here releases the pressure. That's what you do when you're done. Need something just a little taller. Let's see. Ideally, you want this set up nice and vertical. You could still use two people. It can help. But I think this will be just fine. Yeah, this is fine. I'll just stand up here. All right, so what I want to do is loosen this bleed screw. Open it up. Is it going to go? You know what, I'm going to get a different wrench because that one almost feels like it's going to bugger it up. Let me loosen it with some pliers. I highly doubt this has ever been done in the bike's life. So, like every other fastener on here, it's probably pretty stuck. It's not reverse thread, is it? It's really on there. Let me get some locking pliers. There we go. Oh, did that break? It felt like it snapped. No, that was just really stuck. Okay. Now we'll put our hose on. Pump up some vacuum. Now it's important that this cap be really snug. Make sure all these lines are going. There we go. We can start to see the fluid come through. It's not that great of a seal here at this bleed screw. Looks like it's drawn in some air, probably right around the threads there. I'm going to let this drain some. Should be able to loosen it a little more. Wow, I mean, it's as black as used oil. It is never supposed to be like this. Whew, and does it stink. Really nasty. Make sure the reservoir isn't totally dry and it needs some more. So we'll put this in. Back up to the top level.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Had to pause there, had a guy come up that wanted some air in his tires. So let's continue. Got the fluid topped off up top. So that's about as much as you get without, this is about 40 on the gauge, not sure if that's cc's, probably is. And that's as much as you can draw out on this bike without having to top it back up, just for reference. Don't know how much is left in here, so I'm going to draw a vacuum. Instructions say about a dozen times. Open it back up. Keep pumping it to keep the vacuum going. Now I can start to see some clearer fluid coming out. I'm concerned though about all those bubbles coming in through the fitting. I can't tell if it's before or after the tube. I think it's the tube itself. So you know what? I'm going to put on one of the adapters and get a better fit. Because what you need to do is make sure you don't have any actual bubbles coming through the system. So I'll snug that up there, and just about ready to dump this anyway. I'm almost to 80. So I got to top it back off. I'm going to put a snugger fitting hose on the end to here, and then we'll finish it up. Okay, topped it back off. Pump up the vacuum some more. Now we know we have the clear fluid making its way down. So now we're going to look for just a nice solid stream of new clean fluid. Still have that air coming through. It has to be the bleed valve itself because I have a very tight fit tube on here. That's not the issue. Maybe I'm not opening it all the way. You're only supposed to need to open it about a quarter turn. Turn it more, it's going to come out. Well, see, I just did what I said not to do. That sound you heard was it sucking in air up at the top because I wasn't paying attention to how much I drew out. So now I got to start over and flush it out. But I need to figure out where these bubbles are coming from in this bleed valve first. That's a little disconcerting. They shouldn't be there. So I took the bleed pin out here, cleaned off all the threads real good. No damage or anything like that. It's just the way it's designed. Basically, it's a little point that will seal it really well when you drive it all the way in, and it's hollow, and as you back it off just a little bit, it lets fluid go through the holes here on either side and travel down. But you know, there's no sealant or anything. It's just metal to metal on these threads, so it's going to get some air in it. That's just the way it is. And it's got to be seated really well. That's why it was so stuck to fit in. More modern ones have a much better design and fit, and you won't have the air seeping around the threads. It's more of an actuation switch. So no big deal there. I'll just go ahead and refill it and trust that it's not going to have air bubbles in. It shouldn't. And then I'll just cinch it down real tight, and that'll be that. Top it back off just to the fill line. Pedal a squeeze. Not pedal, lever. No bubbles. Put the cap back on. Nice clear sight glass now. So that discoloration was just from the fluid. Nasty. Cap back on the brake fluid here. You have a very short time if you need to use it for something else, otherwise just dispose of it. Just like oil, just take it down to your AutoZone or Pet Boys or whatever you have. They take oil for free, and that's that. Alright, now I've got to reassemble the top. I'm going to wipe the top off where that gasket was sitting. Make sure the surface is smooth and clean. Good to go there. You want to clean off all the old gaskets and seals and cover and all that. Make sure none of that old fluid is on there. Whew. Yeah, I'm about done for the day. Again, brutally hot. Carefully put that in. If you overfilled it, this is where it would come out. I didn't, so that's good. Then we have our plastic cover, which shouldn't have any dirty fluid on it. That gasket, the rubber one, should be sealing everything, and it did. And I'm going to clean this metal cover up a bit. It's got some oxidation, but I can do that on the bike while it's assembled. No need to do it now. So the plastic goes in the grooves. Top fits. Shouldn't matter which way it goes. Put the screws back in, nice and tight. Book does not call for any Loctite on these. Just make sure that the threads are nice and clean, and they are. I put them both in and then snug them down. And again, make sure you absolutely positively use the correct sized Phillips tip when dealing with Phillips screws. Putting them back in is even more dangerous than taking them out as far as stripping the heads. If you have the proper size tip, you have no movement. And there you go. Bada bing, bada boom. Put the rubber cap back on the bleed screw, and that's it to flushing your brakes. Pretty much the same way as any bike. If you have a more complicated one, follow book spec. Usually it's master cylinder first, and then you work your way from farthest cylinders to the nearest, and it's just a longer procedure of the exact same thing, and you usually don't have the air seepage through the threads themselves. It's usually a solid stream, so it actually is a little cleaner of a job. That's it. All right, I'm going to wrap it up for today. That's the end of day 4. Question for the end of the day. ABS brakes, do you have them now? Would you like them in the future? If you've gone back and forth between bikes with and without, what do you prefer and why? Let me know. This is my first bike without ABS. I've had 2 FJRs, both of them had it. Can't say I've ever had to actuate it. So I don't really know firsthand how well the merits of it compare to a non-ABS bike. But I just do street riding. I'm very slow and careful in the wet. I don't do any kind of off-road. So I want to know your thoughts. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out the site, TwoWheelObsession.com. And we'll see you next time for the next installment of the Bobber Project. See ya.